Hello, everyone. My name is Casey Kohler, and for this Not This But That presentation, I have chosen to read the book No More Independent Reading Without Support. In the first two sections of this book, the authors, Debbie Miller and Barbara Ross, go through the not this that shouldn't be happening in classrooms when it comes to independent reading. They also solidify why these practices are not great, and they also talk about what probably will work better when it comes to instruction of independent reading. The reading block in schools across the United States consists of children doing a number of things about reading rather than reading itself. Some of the examples of the practices we have students do are worksheets, packets, comprehension questions, and centers. The Common Core state standards for ELA explicitly call for independent reading. Students must read and comprehend complex literary and informational texts independently and proficiently. Because of this standard, independent reading is required to be sustained at all grade levels. A study identified 20 ways students spend instructional time during the school day. The only factor that explained gains of reading achievement score was time that was actually dedicated to reading text. Through DEAR and silent sustained reading, we don't have evidence of meaning-making, growth, or struggles that the students are making without implementing strategies they should be practicing in this time block. Independent reading time varies with skill level and proficiency. In a study conducted, Miller and Moss found that 15 minutes of reading time for lower readers appears to be more beneficial than 40 minutes of improving skills such as reading speed and comprehension. Those that get overlooked for the type of reading that they should be doing in the classroom are striving readers and English learners. The different types of students that would benefit most from these opportunities are English language learners, learning disabled students, and average readers. They would benefit more from being given opportunities to read than other readers. Some of the ways that we can support them are assisting with book selection, supporting their reading both inside and outside of school, supporting their understanding of what they're reading during reading block, and assisting them with implementation of strategies, along with help in small group discussion. Two different realms of teaching practice that need to be adjusted are genre-specific reading instruction and teacher intervention and behavior monitoring. In genre-specific reading instruction, we find that reading processes used for specific genres have unique features like comprehension, character development, and information extraction. This shows that different information is gained from different genres read, so instruction in these different genres needs to be altered to fit the purposes of the text discovered. There are three tactics that could be included in teacher intervention and monitoring behaviors. These are teacher response to student questions, teacher-led discussions, and teacher monitoring and modeling of comprehension strategies. It is the specific actions that teachers take to support students during silent reading periods that produce significant growth in students' comprehension. Another area that many teachers are lacking in is the creation of their classroom library and fitting specific guidelines. There are two different types of guidelines that have been set out. One is by the IRA that says that 7 books per student should be kept in the classroom, and Fountas and Pinnell brought out guidelines that said that a classroom library needs between 300 and 600 books total. Of this culmination, no matter what combo you decide to choose, you should have 50% of your books literary and 50% of them be informational. You should have books for all students that could be easy, grade level, or stretch texts that challenge the reader. And last but not least, there should be an array of different text types and genres. Focused teachers in classrooms considered highly effective by their principals believe adult support is a necessity in classrooms. According to Miller and Moss, these teachers also believe that ongoing assistance in areas such as monitoring student choices, teaching IR behaviors, and maintaining a focus on student growth are pertinent to successful independent reading. Children reading on their own is an established educational practice that must be turned into an effective one. Independent silent reading that is considered effective asks teachers to structure, guide, teach, interact with, monitor, and hold students accountable for time spent reading in this fashion. Now we move on to what needs to be implemented and changed in Section 3. The researchers and the authors have put together a framework to support classroom independent reading. One of the biggest takeaways found connects back to the very beginning of my presentation, talking about students actually reading instead of doing things about reading. One of the components that they created is a structured day in the reading block, as you can see on this slide. There are 3 components to this block: a focus lesson that could be whole group or smaller group, that is instruction of what readers do and how they do it. The next piece is reading and practicing, so actually implementing what the strategy is that's being focused on from the focus lesson. Teachers can confer, monitor progress, and give time to write and talk with their students. Then everyone comes back at the end to share and reflection, so they can share what they learned about themselves as readers and reflect on what they were able to discover in the strategies, along with teachers being able to reflect on the effect of this strategy on student growth. These teachers were able to find a lot of time in the day that could be dedicated to independent reading, and they made adjustments to different activities done throughout the day to allow for this. Some of the things that were changed were calendar activities, transitions, morning announcements, lineup, and preparation to go home. The result of this change was a finding of 60 to 125 minutes a day that could be dedicated back in classroom practices without all of the fluff. There are 4 guiding principles that teachers need to be following when it comes to instruction for reading. They are purpose, authenticity, choice, and explicit instruction. When it comes to purpose, we need to realize that when teachers are explicit and children have a clear purpose for their reading work each day, it engages and motivates them to want to read and work hard. This is all about student ownership or learning. When it comes to authenticity, teachers have to reflect on the practices their students complete and question if these practices are what readers actually do in the real world. For example, if they complete worksheets, they write about reading, they read in book groups, they complete book reviews, book recommendations, book lists, they answer questions about the text, or they make notes about what they're reading. When it comes to choice, we have to have students ask themselves 4 questions when choosing books. 1, am I interested in this book? 2, can I read it? 3, does it give me something to think and talk about? And 4, will it help me practice what I or we are learning how to do? To make the kinds of choices that keep them engaged during independent reading and growing as readers, teachers need to give children many opportunities to get to know themselves as readers and show them how to make wise choices. When it comes to explicit instruction, we need to ask how we can show, model, or demonstrate just what we want children to practice and learn how to do. As I swing back to explicit instruction, this should be one of the 4 grounds of independent reading practice. We need to demonstrate how readers make meaning. We need to provide reasons to read a variety of text topics and genres, and we must model how to talk about texts and interact with texts. There are 10 tactics that teachers use to personalize learning during independent reading. The first 5 are displayed on this slide. The first one has to do with getting books in their hands. We must shop in our school first, fully utilize school and local libraries, and consider our needs for the students in our classes. The second is organizing our books for easy access. We should be utilizing materials to make books look interesting and visually appealing for students, dependent upon the grade level that we teach. Third is to start with small chunks of classroom independent reading time. We should work our way up in terms of reading time to increase student stamina over the course of our year. The fourth is monitoring IR. Some of our teachers need to be asking themselves, who's engaged? Who isn't? How do we know? We should monitor their actions, then confer with them to refocus them or praise them for their work. The fifth is differentiating instruction and creating accountability through conferring. We always should be implementing this through independent reading time. It is about checking for use of strategies and obtaining information from students. We should use prompts to appropriately engage our students in conversing about their reading. The final 5 tactics are displayed on this slide. The 6th is using a catch to refocus the group. We as teachers know that it's okay to try again, and with this tactic, you can bring everyone back together, clear up misconceptions of the lesson, and start back better again. 7th is to invite students to reflect on and share their learning. Students will see the kind of books that they've read in reflection, how hard they've worked, and they'll have pride in what they've accomplished and can share with others. 8th is using partner reading and book clubs to get students talking and reading independently. Students together can use checkpoints in the book and have authentic conversations when students can get their heads together when talking about reading. 9th is assessing assessing students' progress as independent readers. This can be done through conferring, but tracking their growth is why we do this type of work in the first place. And finally, the final tactic is supporting independent reading through assessment choice. Assessments given could be informal or formal, and they can be completed through sticky notes, exit tickets, journal entries, or reading reflections. Now I will be speaking to the current practices that I implement already in my classroom. As a sixth grade English language arts teacher, I have the world of independent reading at my fingertips and can do at this time what I see most fit for the audience I have. Because of this, there are many effective practices I see occurring in my room during independent reading time or ELA instruction. Things that I already do that our authors and researchers have praised are confer, complete book clubs, utilize the school library, get books in the hands of my students, teach students why readers read, giving lots of choice in student selection of books, and I do a lot of focus lessons with reflection time at the end that model that table from before. There are multiple different components to the book that I read that I could see myself implementing in my future classroom practices. Practice I see getting a lot of use out of my classroom is the genre wheel. Having students reading a wide variety of texts can be shown with this wheel. As they complete a text in a specific genre, they record the title of the book in the proper portion of the genre wheel, then color that segment in. In sixth grade, students should be able to fill each portion of this in very easily. It just comes down to preference when reading text for middle school age students. The image that's shown on this slide is a rendition that's taken from the actual book. There are many other additions from this book that I could implement into my classroom environment. The first one being teacher monitoring. I feel as though I'm pretty strong when it comes to teacher response to student questions and teacher-led discussions, but I would like to continue to strengthen my monitoring and modeling of comprehension strategies for my sixth grade students. Since some are reading at a third grade level and some are reading beyond a sixth grade level, I need to make sure that everyone is understanding the strategies we're implementing. A second is conferring strategies. I have a very extensive conferring checklist that I go through, and I want to be able to be more quick and succinct to reach more students in a class period. The third is boosting up my classroom library. Although our school library has a multitude of options for my readers, if there's ever a time that students cannot utilize this resource, I want my library in my classroom to be one that they could turn to if need be. It may take years to create, but I can start boosting my library today. The last is assessment options. I want to continue to be working on the breadth of assessment I use in my classroom to monitor progress. Whether it's an informal session of student-led questions, an exit ticket at the end of a lesson, or sticky notes where students write questions as they read, I want to include a plethora of assessment options in order to successfully track student growth. My references are attached here. Thank you for listening to my presentation.